This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices, and you can get a special price right now by going to pilchpoint.live/PureVPN. All right, so 2 weeks ago when we were last on, Avram, you teased, and now that I think about it, you teased very, very briefly a keyboard change. I think you've got more on that now.
Yes. So a couple months ago, we had a show about where I showed off the Alienware m17R4, which remains probably the best gaming laptop you can buy, because not only can you get it with an RTX 3080 card, which is top of the line for a laptop anyway, but they actually run it at a higher TDP, thermal design profile, meaning it uses more wattage because they have more cooling to offset that heat. And so you get really good performance. And by default, this laptop has a really good snappy keyboard. But the Alienware company, Dell, which owns Alienware, recently added a brand new option, the first of its kind on any laptop, a mechanical keyboard with a brand new type of switch, the CherryMX Ultra Low Profile switch. So there have been some laptops, there's been a few that have had mechanical keyboards, but they've been very few, and there's usually a trade-off of it being very thick or not very good. Let me see if I can show you here mechanical keyboard. So just for those who aren't familiar with mechanical keyboards and the difference here, you really want a mechanical keyboard, and a lot of people get them for their external keyboard for their desktop or attached to a laptop at home. Here I have a keypad. It's kind of a custom-made one just for fun, called the Keybow. And you can see that mechanical switches, if I pull off the keycap here, mechanical switches, unlike a lot of laptop switches and regular what we call rubber dome switches, they actually have a mechanism here with a spring. And this one is a clicky mechanism. These are actually called yellow switches. Each switch, so people who care about mechanical keyboards, they care about who makes the switch, because the feel of the switch is everything, right? And Cherry is the original, one of the most popular switch maker for mechanical switches. And up until now, the company really wasn't catering to the laptop market, because that wasn't something that it was doing. But they have just come out with this new switch type. So let me show you a diagram actually of what it looks like. If we look here, you'll see. I'm going to zoom in. You'll see this diagram. So this is what a regular CherryMX switch looks like. It's about the travel being the amount that you press, that the switch moves when you press it, is on a regular switch is about 4 millimeters, but the actual whole switch is 18.5 millimeters tall. And for certain keyboards, not for laptops, they've already come out with a low profile switch, which is about 11.9 millimeters tall. But the new one for laptops, the MX Ultra Low Profile, has 1.8 millimeters of travel, but it's only 3.5 millimeters tall, which means it's not making your laptop significantly thicker. And if you take a look here, this is actually a blow up of what the new switch looks like. And the switch is actually supposed to be inspired by the gull wing doors on a DeLorean. So if you've
Interesting.
watched Back to the Future, you've seen this switch.
Hmm.
So how does it actually feel? So Dell sent me a new Alienware M17. This is what it looked like. I had to send it back, so I'm showing you a picture rather than flashing the real one. Um, but it looks identical to the one that I had shown on this show a few weeks ago that didn't have the mechanical switches. So you wouldn't be able to tell just from looking at it. However, however, the feel of it is really quite extraordinary. It has that really great clicky feel. Now, obviously, some folks don't like a clicky feel, but it has that audible feedback. So it feels more like a Cherry MX Blue. Cherry MX Blue switches are their clicky switches versus say their brown switches, which are have a tactile feel but are silent, or their red switches, which are linear, which means they just go straight down with no tactile bump while you press them. But these switches, the Cherry MX Ultra Low Profile, uh, even though they're much, they take up a lot less space than a traditional mechanical switch, they still have that mechanical switch feel and sound. And so I found typing on this absolutely fantastic. I found gaming on it absolutely fantastic. It really couldn't, if you bought the Alienware M17 R4 with this optional keyboard, which is an extra $176. So no joke how much you're paying extra to get this over the default keyboard. Granted, if you're buying an Alienware M17, you're probably spending over $2,000 anyway. So maybe you're in a mood to splurge. The the Switch is really, really fantastic, and it would save you from having to go out and buy an external keyboard if you want the best possible keyboard experience. Now, at the moment, Alienware is the only company that has these switches that is allowed to use these switches. They have a some window of exclusivity, we think, with Cherry, uh, but whatever it is, whenever it's definitely not. I don't think it's forever, so we will probably be seeing these on other keyboards and other laptops. And frankly, I would love to see them on an ultra portable laptop, not one that was made for gaming, but one that was made for productivity. Because honestly, as much as I love ThinkPad keyboards, this would actually outdo a ThinkPad keyboard. It's just got such a wonderful feel and click to it. I was able to match one of my highest typing speeds ever, and it was just really a pleasure to use. And so, even if you're not in the market for an Alienware M17 or an Alienware M15, which also has this as an option, it's still worth noting because in the near future, other laptops will probably be available with this key switch. Perhaps maybe even they'll bring it to external keyboards. Although, if you have an external keyboard, you have the room to get a full fledged switch. I mean, unless somehow your hands are in, I don't know, some kind of a vice or something. I'm sure you have the extra 20 millimeters or whatever for a full size switch in your on your desk, the extra 20 millimeters of height. But nevertheless, it's an impressive achievement, and so I wanted to share that here.
I do want to say I like the idea of trying to type with your hands in a device. That was very visual.
I mean, because there are some folks, I mentioned this because one of the comments I got on my article so I have an article up about the experience of typing on the CherryMX Ultra Low Profile switches. And one of the comments I got was, when is this coming to an external keyboard? And it points out to me something that I've not quite understood in the marketplace, which is that there is a market for low profile keyboards. And therefore, there are people who want their desktop keyboard to be, this is too tall for them, right? This size switch is too tall for them. These are normal switches. they can't bear, this amount of height being taken up on their desk. But the question is why? I mean, now I have seen some of those low profile keyboards and they look cool, but at the same time, like when it comes to your keyboard, there's looks and then there's comfort. And I mean, there's no really practical reason why you wouldn't have the space for a taller keyboard. It's not like the air rights on your desk are restricted or something. I understand why some people want a smaller keyboard with fewer keys because then they can have more space on their desk, but vertical space above your keyboard is never, it's not normally a concern. So
Yeah, I mean, even in the setup here, where I have it in a cubby that literally was designed for a Radio Shack cash register, uh, I've got plenty of space above the keyboard to have a mechanical keyboard in here. And this was
right.
not designed for what I'm using it for.
Yeah, I mean, I I've really spent a lot of time looking into because I love having the best possible keyboard experience, and I know there's more that I can do with my personal keyboard, like this one that I've shown previously. This Hex Gears Impulse is great, but I would still, love to build a custom keyboard. But nevertheless, I don't quite understand the move toward having less on your keyboard. There are a lot of folks who now they want what's called a 60% keyboard, which is no arrow keys. Like forget not just no number pad, no arrow keys, no function keys. All that stuff would have to be done with keyboard combinations. Uh, and I don't quite get it. I mean, I get that they want to save a little space on their desk, but uh, if your space isn't for buttons, what could it be? What could it be for? Could never have enough buttons in our life, never. But nevertheless, there definitely are trends toward having narrower and shorter keyboards. These switches work really well because in the laptop world, you really need that space. Otherwise, your laptop's Z height will look like this. And I have seen a couple of instances before where on really high end laptops they did use a mechanical keyboard, and wow, those things were thick. Like
Mhm.
it was an MSI, I think it was the GT75 Titan or whatever. That was like, wow, that thing was super thick. It had wonderful key feel. That thing was really thick. So these keys make it thin enough that you might very well be able to put this on an ultra portable laptop.
Yeah, I was introduced. Obviously, you live in this, but I was introduced literally to the idea of these small, short, but still mechanical keyboards on what's today, Sunday? Yesterday. Because my brother has one without the keycaps on it that was sitting off to the side on his desk. And I'm like, what are we looking at here? He's like, it is just the core. And I'm thinking, wow, because I've got a keyboard that is so big, it's got almost a whole extra keyboard to the left. To your point of you can't have too many buttons.
Yeah,
I've got, I mean, oh no, keyboard, the cord's too short. I've got 18 additional keys off to the left. I got myself almost a whole extra keyboard.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm trying to. My real beef is that it doesn't work at the same height, but I have this keyboard here, which is like an extra 12 keys that you can program for stuff. This is, by the way, something you can get at Pimaroni for I think about $50. Um, and my son and I had worked on. Got to dig it out. My daughter, because my daughter's been running around with it. Another keypad, right? That you could do for extra keys because I'm always a big fan of like give me another button to press. But there definitely are folks who are really into a minimalist approach. Perhaps one of these days, I did for a while when I was reviewing one, test out a really limited keyboard and it wasn't. I wasn't too thrilled, especially to be missing the arrow keys. But you know, so is that going to be your brother's new keyboard?
No, I think he's getting ready to sell it. I think he was annoyed by it.
Oh.
Yeah,
I mean, you still need the caps, though. You still need the keycaps.
I'm not going to lie. Thinking about it now, I think he may have purchased it because it was on sale and he wanted the keycaps, and it was less than buying the caps.
Oh, he wanted the keycaps.
So thinking back on it, that might have been the case.
But then the rest of his keyboard's not going to have matching keycaps, right? If he puts it on a regular keyboard.
Or maybe he was swapping out switches. I don't remember what the reason was, but now that I think about it, I think he bought it on sale to replace a component somewhere, and it was less than buying the components. I'd forgotten about that until just now.
I will say this. I really want to try some different keycaps. This is somewhat off topic because if you have a laptop, you're not going to be changing the keycaps. You can't. But that is one thing that mechanical keyboards on a laptop definitely cannot do, is allow you to change the keycap. And I guess they don't really want you to, because if you got a keycap that was too tall, it would bump into the lid and you'd have problems. But I really want to try on my home keyboard SA style keycaps. Have you ever tried those?
No.
SA keycaps, and they can be quite expensive. So the cheapest I've seen them is like $60 for a set. Normally they're like $80, $90, $100, and I'm worried to spend that on keycaps if I may not love them. But they are thicker and taller, and they are rounder, and they are supposed to look and feel like old school terminal keyboard keycaps. So if you like used a Commodore PET back in the day, or some kind of terminal back in the day, this is the style of keycap that those had, including the big font that they had.
I am definitely looking on a website at a yellow set of them. And yeah, honestly, they look so much like some of my super old keyboards. Very different than what I've got under here.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm nostalgic for that old feel. Instead of retro gaming, I want to be retro typing.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know, for a lot of people, that physical feedback and the feel of the keys are all very, very important. So, and that's where this keyboard comes in. You said that you've already published an article on this?
Yes. So we have an article about it on Tom's Hardware about the new CherryMX Ultra Low Profile switches. We also have updated the review of the Alienware m17, so you can check that out as well.
Excellent. Well, I'm super intrigued by this. I will admit that I was doing the configurator on Alienware's website while you were talking to see the price of the laptop with my configuration and that keyboard.
Probably like $3,000 or something.
Yeah, pretty close.
Depending on what you want, right?
27,
the keyboard's 100. The keyboard option last I checked, which was I think Thursday or Friday, was $176 premium.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, 176. 176.40. Just to be extra weird. Because I was looking at the price and I'm like, how did it get to 27, 24, 39? Where is the extra 40 cents coming from? Oh, now I know.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The pricing is bizarre.
Whatevs. Doesn't matter. So I'm intrigued. I've been looking for a laptop, and this has been on my list. And with the additional keyboard option, it's gone up my list. So very interesting. As always, Avram, I appreciate the information because this is stuff that is outside of my day-to-day, so it's always nice to have you bring it to our attention, and I look forward to what we talk about next time. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Piltch Point with Avram Piltch. If you did, please subscribe to our channel, and of course hit the notification bell since subscriptions don't mean much on YouTube anymore. And if you've got topics you'd like us to discuss in the future, we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. If you don't want to follow us on YouTube, that's okay. There's a lot of other ways that you can follow our content. You can find all of that by going to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows and all the different ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along.